So there are many artists I know, female, that like or look up to Kurt Cobain, whatever. So for example, the Greek band Serial um, has a song where this is made clear, but in a picture. So basically, so I just looked up Kurt Cobain. I always thought he was like an old guy with, um I'm not sure. So I didn't think he is a very handsome person, and it is not clear, or he was. It was not clear. It's not clear how he died, but I didn't know he died like very young. And also, Amy Winehouse died very young. And so this is the preamble of today's diary entry. And so the topic of today's diary entry is how to mount against something that is seemingly more powerful than you. So I will try to capture some thoughts on this. So by the way, today's resurrection um, day, Easter, in Greece, and I think all of Orthodox churches. So basically, Christ was an example of a person who had divine nature according to church, etc., who mounted against the Roman Empire, which was the status quo of the world back then. So what are other examples of mounting? Um, I don't know. I don't. So my feeling is that Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse and maybe the Doors person, what was his name? So creative people mount at nothingness sometimes. So they mount and mount and mount, and only to find out that unless you mount at something specific, you die. But Christ died as well. So maybe my thought is very preliminary. So I was chatting with an old friend of mine. He's much older than I am. Chatting with a friend of mine, um, and it's not important to say more. And he was telling me that the Christianity was a revolution back then, and I responded that today is the status quo, so it's not a revolution anymore. Maybe today now it's a revolution to say you are not Christian, but it's not necessarily true. So the idea of rejecting this is a long time ago since ancient Greece, etc. So it's not clear. So you want to the point of my thinking is like you see something flawed in the world around and you feel you don't like this and you want to mount against it. That's what I. So the I was talking about this in another blog and video entry, whatever diary, that so I defined the Greek soul as the average person who feels crushed by the system or the status quo of the state of the world, feels crushed and not able to do anything. So 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 really, so my beautiful fans, which there are not many, uh, maybe one, I don't know. So maybe my beautiful fans, uh, if there are other examples of mounting that you can think of that you were interested in, um, I would be happy to hear about them. So, for some reason, right now I'm thinking of other cases of mounting, like for example, Greece against the Persian Empire, but this is not really the case of. But it's worth to think about. I'm talking about people mounting against the system rather than this thing. Um, so yeah. So I will go back to the usual examples I wanted to. So for the purposes of this diary so far, I think I really feel like uh, I, I try to recall things when I was at Princeton. So whenever I think of myself as being at Princeton, there are usually two places that I think myself. So I liked the second room I had at the graduate college. Um, it was a spacious room at the new graduate college, and outside there was a very beautiful tree. It was very nice. It was a very nice room, and there was also I lived in like a very nice the last when I so I left Princeton in August 2008, end of August. I think it was August 28 or August 29. I don't remember. So since uh, between I think it was September 2006. So yes, I got my PhD on 6606, and then around September I think I moved to um, a very nice building, which it was like a post version of Western movies, and I lived in a room there, and it was very nice. Although yeah, it had some problems, but it was very nice. So usually I think of myself at these two places. Uh, I I even retrospectively think my also my office. So I also think that I retrospectively put myself in those places. It's very strange. I remember one day, the room was extremely hot for a few days, I think, and for no apparent reason, I had to sleep. It was like winter, pretty winter, and I slept without any blankets or anything, or sheets or anything, and I could not stand the heat. It felt like the apartment, the room, whatever, was trying to say something, but that's a creepy thought. But I really felt like that, and then it went away. So it was an old building. It was very nice. And when I moved to Berlin, so I had also brought the love seat. That was my favorite place. Although when I was writing something, etc., in my computer, I wasn't in the love seat. I was sitting in the chair. But I brought my love seat to Berlin. Anyway, the moving company did that to me, and they could not fit it from the door because my Berlin apartment was extremely beautiful. Did not have. It was very different though. So it did not have a. It did not fit through the door. So they told me, the moving company told me we can bring a crane um, to uh, put it in put it through the window. So I said it's okay, you don't have to do that. And I'm really wondering what happened to my love seat because I liked it a lot. Um, anyway, so the real point here to think about is that a proof is a dish served cold. I think it relates to something, it's related to revenge. So I think artists mount against something which is not clear what it is. Sometimes, maybe not always, of course. And so basically, if you mount at nothingness and you want immediate, instant gratification, which if you have like a attention disorders and all these crazy things, think anyway. Uh, so you want gratification for what you do. But there are some people who don't want instant gratification, and so in general it helps. So yes, indeed, the proof is this self-culture. So really, I'm engaged. I think very strongly. uh, we all as artists are really engaged in. So I think of myself as an artist sometimes. It's not very different from science at some conceptual level, but I do really feel engaged to science, of course. And yeah, so that was like a small parenthesis. So now I'll try to think about. I will try to think about the real topic, which is science. So I think the real characteristic of wanting to mount against the system is a deep feeling of emptiness, and the pattern I see is like there are people who see beauty in things, and at first you try to argue with the system. You say, okay, look. Anyway, so look, there is some interesting thing to see here, and very beautiful. And so the system responds, uh, this is anyway a feeling of not justice, and it grows and grows and grows. So what is creativity is not clear. So I kind of sidetracked, but I'm going to keep it because there is already said. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if so it wasn't clear what to think. So there is a scientific pattern according to which all people that do important things say it was not encouraged or highly discouraged when I tried to do that. So I swam against the current. Uh, so this swimming against the current is very typical of scientists and artists, etc. For example, recently, I mean, it is so stereotypical and banal that. So recently, I was at a talk at the National Technical University of Athens, where someone from Tesla, a Greek person, was giving a talk. I was very happy to see that there was a big audience, and his point was that he saw the potential for electric cars a long time ago, and he pursued his interest. I left the talk. I didn't. I think um, I there were some things that I was thinking, and I couldn't stay. But so let me put it this way. So all of these nice people, they say that I went against the current. So for example, Kleinrock, who did the queuing theory. So he asked me, why did you work on queuing theory? And he said everyone was working on information theory, so I want to do something different. So basically, this is a pattern. Like all of the interesting things happen because of this. Now the real question now is like, how do you synchronize? How do you synchronize? So um, so the only real example I know of a person doing a very important contribution and being recognized immediately as a huge contribution is Newton's Principia. But there are other examples. I don't know how it happened. It's interesting to investigate. Why did they think such a wacko theory was so immensely important? It's not clear. So it would be nice to see how it was received. But there are other examples, like in complexity theory, there is already a record of things like that. So I don't remember which the record, but oh yeah, in a book on Richard Lipton's book on Dick Lipton's book on uh, the P equal NP problem. And so there was very big interest in exactly the opposite direction of the correct answer. So that was a problem, and actually it's a very big problem. So it is not. I want to smile and laugh about it, but it's serious. So in any case, so if you want to mount against the status quo, what is a good way to do it? Um, so I remember very well the a Perrier advertisement clip, where not very beautiful. I think she was French though. So there are some French women that are very beautiful, and the French language is very beautiful. But some have interesting characteristics though. Anyway, and she mounted against a lion. So the lion mounted at her, and she mounted back. And so the lion said, "Okay, you get Perrier. I don't get Perrier." So that was an interesting. But the real question is like, if you are one person, not completely alone, let's say, but how do you mount against an empire? So that's the real question. So, so in the Lord of the Rings, Frodo, Galadriel told him that even the smallest thing can make a big difference in the world. Um, so I didn't like very much this point though, because I underappreciated him. Even the smallest person can make a big difference. So she she told him that he's a small person, but maybe I don't know. So maybe he was worried, and I don't remember though. Maybe it's Peter Jackson's idea. I don't remember um, what the book says. So maybe it was Peter Jackson's, like he wanted to. I don't know. I find it hard to imagine that Tolkien would have Galadriel say such a thing about Frodo. So this needs to be investigated. Uh, but by the way, I think Gandalf, Aragorn, and Frodo are the same person. It's like different instantiations of the same concept. So I like to think myself in my most sweetest pursuits as Aragorn, but it's not clear if mounting against an empire is a sweet thing. And so I think a very good singer, which I forget her name, has a very nice song called Kill 'Em With Kindness. So she is suggesting a solution. Kill 'Em With Kindness. What's her name? I don't remember. I always forget names, even the people that are very close to me. So kill 'em with kindness is one approach to mounting against an empire. So if you are kind, the empire will fall. It does make sense, but her song is very good, though it's very helpful. So how do you mount against an empire if you are one person? And so the critical constraint I want to put here is that you should not die. So the important thing is, like, unlike Kurt Cobain, I cannot pronounce this. So unlike Kurt Cobain, Cobain and Amy Winehouse, etc., and Marilyn Monroe, you should not. The important thing is to mount and not be a hero, to die for the sake of humanity, because, or Christ, for example, if you die for the sake of humanity, you defeat the purpose of your mounting. I think it's not good. Because what is the it discourages people from actually mounting, right? Uh, it has an interesting thing, like it serves a good purpose, but the revolution becomes problematic. So I think the real revolution is to mount against an empire. Oh, I wanted to say something before. So the real question is to mount against an empire, and uh, so what is the right word here? Tame the beast. So when I was at Princeton, the previous was a big parenthesis with respect. It was a big parenthesis with respect to this comment. It was not really a parenthesis. It was very critical or important. Uh, but so I was in the dining hall. So this looked like Harry Potter's. So when I watched Harry Potter, I was at Princeton, and it was like, oh, so this is the graduate college. Dining hall. So the dining halls are very much like the Harry Potter at Princeton. So the real issue there, we were discussing with a guy who was, I think, Asian American. He was Asian American characteristics, but I don't remember if he was Asian American or whatever. So I told him that I was wondering naturally what is a bachelor's degree. And so we were chatting, and there were other people there as well. It was not just him, but he responded. So I said, "What is a bachelor's degree?" So people that studied science, they became bachelors. So you had to be a bachelor to get a bachelor's degree. And so he responded quite seriously that if you get a master's degree, then science is your dog. So so if you get a PhD, what is your science then? So the point of this is to mount against the empire, who is a lion, and you want the lion to be your puppy. So that's the real. It's not true what I'm saying, but the real goal here is to have fun in your life. I think it's important. It's not the real goal of life. But if you are very anxious, etc., and worried, you don't have fun in this very problem. Um, so I try to intentionally break my English. I think speaking very well in English is very hard. So, so if you want like to speak very well in English, so Abraham Lincoln, I was attending a talk by a guy whose name I don't remember, of course. In Greece, he's well known. So Doxiadis is his name, and he was saying that basically when there was debate in the United States, like 150 years ago, I think that was the time of Lincoln, but I'm not sure. So they had like extremely complicated arguments, but they were preparing for it a lot. The arguments in the sense of debate. So, but they took a lot of time to prepare for those debates. So I don't really want to take an immense amount of time to prepare for my entries on my diary. I will do it sometime, but I would try to speak casually, and it's yeah. So we have not solved the question of mounting. So what is the best way really? This is the big question. So another big I double spoke. I don't know how I did that. So another big question is whether the approach should be top down or bottom up. When I was in Berlin, I tried to investigate what top down and bottom up means, and so top down is the French system of government, where you actually so the civil servants are not accountable to what they do. The boss is accountable and legally responsible for the servant, the civil servant. Whereas in the German system, they have a bottom-up which is strange because I think French people are more bottom-up rather than anyway. So Germans are bottom-up, and so in the system of government, the civil servant, it's not called civil servant there. So the the person that is doing the job is legally responsible, and but he is um, uh, he should, by ethical principle, follow the guidelines of his superior. That's how they call it in German, superior. And, so let me say something else now that's more. So basically, I was impressed with a person. I was actually kind of like advising during a course, a student of the course, for his paper. I was really impressed with his ability to follow advice. I don't think, I think this is a rare gift that he had, which, in my opinion, exemplifies a good German ethical code. They have, in a sense, internalized this. Because even if you're very smart, if you're not German in general, so for example, if you're Greek or American, it is very hard to do that. It is almost impossible. So there is something there to think about Germany, this ability to do that. I've never seen this in my life before. So, for example, let's take if I do something, someone tells me to do something, I want to know everything he has thought about in order to think what he told me I should do. Otherwise, I cannot do it. that guy was actually doing extremely well what I actually told him to do. I was giving him advice for his presentation, and they gave him a better. So I suggest he gets an A, and I think he got an A plus or something like this, because I didn't know what others got, so I said A. But so he really did a very good presentation. I didn't attend it, but he told me it was very good. So this is a gift of German culture to do that. So it really fits their mentality, and they have worked on that. So this is something to think about. Um, so now we'll take a small break and think about more seriously how to mount against an empire uh, from a single person. I had to think for like a minute or two. So a single person can mount against an empire by finding the Achilles heel. In my humble opinion, every morphism in the negative sense that shouldn't be there guides you to its kill. So the Achilles heel to its heel. So the Achilles heel is the real question. So if you find the Achilles heel and work your way there.